And Andy, we're focusing in particular on these peer-to-peer transfers services, Venmo and Square. Is one winning? Is one growing at a faster clip? Is there a difference? What should we know about these companies?
Yeah, for this, we looked at the LikeFolio's data on the mentions of people using Cash App or Venmo. And when we plotted that out, you can see these two were really kind of neck and neck for quite a while. And then it's the Cash App that has really taken a dominant foothold over the last a little while. And so there's two takeaways for me from this chart. Number one is Cash App won at least the early portion of this race. Secondly, the difference between the two they've both kind of flatlined in terms of mention volume, which we believe and have seen before equates to usage volume. And so from a consumer demand perspective, the gap between the two really isn't increasing as fast as it was before. And both have sort of flatlined because a lot of the adoption that was occurring for both of these was because of the meteoric rise in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency prices acting as kind of a free marketing funnel for both of these, and especially the Cash App. And so, I actually think that when I look at this chart, what it tells me, and Jenny alluded to this earlier, with PayPal's massive distribution and number of users that they have being so much higher than Square's, that it actually tells me that PayPal has an extremely large opportunity in front of it in the peer-to-peer space, in its Venmo app. I think it's going to become a point of focus because they've seen the success that Square has had with its Cash App. And so I do think that the trajectory of these charts could change considerably over the next year or two.
Andy, I want to get into some of the nuts and bolts of these two companies. The things I read, 350 million active accounts in PayPal, but Square has 50 million accounts not really active within their universe, right? So that's number one, how do they get those accounts to activate? How do they get them out there? And number two, what's the biggest? I see these two things. They look extremely similar in terms of comparisons, though Cash App does have that link to its hardware, small business, brick and mortar business that PayPal may not have. But besides that, what are the major differences between these two companies? What differentiates them? Because it looks like, Cash App is moving into more of a leadership spot and gaining traction. What's making that happen?
Well, I really think that it's, PayPal has largely, ignored the Venmo platform in a lot of ways. I think that's been a big problem for them, whereas Square put a lot into their Cash App platform. And I think so Venmo kind of has struggled because its parent company with this massive distribution and all of these hooks into small businesses, into every user of the internet on the planet almost hasn't really gotten the Venmo thing going. And I think that's changing. We're seeing signs of that changing. We're seeing signs that PayPal is going to get into allowing cryptocurrency transactions via its Venmo platform. It's kind of the first time PayPal's really been advocating a lot for Venmo. So I think that's the biggest difference. And I think when that changes, that could be a really big deal for PayPal. And it could be, from a competitive standpoint, a big deal for Square. And overall, though, I think Jenny was completely right. There's plenty of room for multiple winners in this space. And these are the two that are head and shoulders above the pack.
So, Andy, as we close things out here, these two names are very, very tightly correlated. Square seems to trade at a higher beta, which is not uncommon for the name that's kind of playing catch-up in many ways. Square is a newer entrant to the market. It's not a surprise that it would take a little bit for it to catch up to the more established peer in PayPal. But I talked to you guys directly and suggested that PayPal Venmo versus Cash App comparison, but the more I'm thinking about it, is that almost an unfair comparison on the Venmo front, given that Venmo is just kind of the traditional peer-to-peer transfer, at least in its current state. It has a little bit of a social media aspect to it, but Cash App is far more of a kind of a catch-all in terms of, I believe you can do investments through that. You can certainly do things with cryptocurrencies. Is it almost unfair right now to fully compare them until Venmo is either built out further, or do we have to expand and almost consider PayPal's legacy platform in this comparison as well?
No, I think what you said is completely fair. I think it is a little bit of an unfair comparison to compare, PayPal versus Square by looking strictly at their peer-to-peer payment systems, because PayPal has seemingly intentionally siloed the Venmo business, whereas Square has gone all in on this app as their growth engine. And I think what PayPal's seeing is that what Square is doing worked better than what PayPal's doing. Square is saying its new users are much more profitable than its old cohort of users because they're coming on, they're seeing all of the different things that you can do within this one ecosystem. And so I think we're kind of getting to the point where things just switch. And now, like Jenny said, Square is going to be focused on user growth to try to catch up with PayPal, and PayPal is going to be focused on ecosystem functionality growth to try to catch up with Square. And so I think both of them are going to end up in a really good spot, but it's just very interesting to watch two different strategies kind of converge, by the pendulum just swinging back for each of them towards the middle. And that's where I think we are. So it'll be very interesting. I want to watch this chart that LikeFolio shared really closely, because if we start to get big consumer demand upticks in Venmo and not in Square, then that means that the PayPal strategy is actually working. Better late than never, but we'll have to see if that can actually take hold, because if their bets don't work on Venmo, then Square's lead could be dominant when we talk again about this later down the line.